Hey, good evening, my friends. How are you? Welcome to another edition of Wednesday Night Live with me, Mike Avery. Tonight, here in my home studio. Next week, we will be at the Michigan Brand plant in Bay City. Always a pleasure to have you along with us. Hello, Sean. Sean, did you see the big news about Angler Quest? They are dropping the Pro Troll. Cliff, good morning. Randy, good evening, Randy. John, look forward to hunting with you and your dad in Ohio. Bill just sent out a new group of pictures. Did you see them? The bucks in Ohio are growing very nice, as are the bucks here in Michigan. A lot of people real interested in those big velvet racks right now. Rex, hello, how are you? You did see it, eh, Sean? Remind me, do you have a family fish or a Pro Troll, Sean? I interviewed Andrew St. Peter, who is the new marketing director for Angler Quest, today for the radio show. Also today for the radio show, I spent the better part of an hour talking with the GOAT, KVD, Kevin Van Dam. He's on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show talking about wrapping up a 33-year bass fishing career like none other, like nobody's. You do have the family fish. Offline, Sean, I'd like to talk with you about that sometime. I've got that. I looked at the one for next year, and it looks pretty nice, and I may well end up in a family fish myself. Yeah, John, I figured you'd like talking with the GOAT. The GOAT. It's an overused term these days, isn't it? Anyway, a few things going on tonight. A little bit later, I'll tell you the rest of who's on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week. Talk about some end of summer, early fall activities. There's Kevin. Greetings, Mike. Only here for a short while. I'm off to see Ted Nugent at the Temple Theater in Saginaw. Uncle Ted, the Nuge. Tell him Avery said hi. I didn't even know he was in town. Had I known, I still wouldn't have gone because I'm here on Wednesday Night Live. I've got some good Nugent stories. Cliff says, time to order next year's Angler Quest. Maybe it would be ready for spring use. Cliff, if you want an Angler Quest for spring, yeah, order it now. Absolutely. There are still some 23s out there. 24s are working their way into the pipeline. Everything's going well, Jim. How are things in Tennessee? Anytime, Sean. I appreciate that. Sean, send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. We can get a little conversation going. John says, Amy on tonight, Michigan Brand next week. Good lineup. I think so as well. You know that I have much respect for MUCC. MUCC.org is the website. MUCC stands for Michigan United Conservation Clubs. One of the biggest, if not the biggest, statewide conservation group in the country. I think MUCC is doing a great job. I think the staff at MUCC is doing a great job. I think their executive director is doing a great job. And I love having Amy Trotter on here every few months to kind of bring us up to speed on what's going on. And I'm going to bring her in here right now. Hello, Amy Trotter. How are you?
Hi, good. Great to be here.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I asked you this off air, but how's your summer going, Amy?
Summer's going well. It's a little bit busier with real work rather than play, but my job is the outdoors, so it always feels a little bit like work even when I'm fishing.
Well, I know that you're not going to let yourself get bored because number one, you don't have that personality, and number two, there's always a lot going on here in the great state of Michigan.
There really is, yes. Even though the legislature isn't as busy in the summertime, there's still the Natural Resources Commission. They're still prepping for all the fall events and things to come.
I'll remind people watching tonight, if you have a question for Amy, now I've got a few things I want to ask her, and I think she's got a few things she wants to talk about as well. But this is your chance, those of you watching tonight, to put a question in front of Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC. I'm going to be watching these questions, these comments. Amy will as well. If you ask her a question, I will click on it and we'll bring it on the screen. First things first, though, Amy, let's start with something that happens at the national level, not at the state level. And this is the administration's plan to cut hunter education money. What can you tell me about that?
Well, actually, it goes back to something that happened last year when the Congress was debating firearm legislation. This is the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act that passed last year, so a full year ago. But in it was a very small clause that no one really paid much attention to, but it basically said that school funding would be in jeopardy if a school was complicit in training people with dangerous weapons. And that's the language that was used. And of course, that was not Congress's intent. But what has happened is the Department of Education, the US Department of Education, has interpreted those words to say that that means no school can be used for hunter safety or the National Archery in the Schools program. And those are big things here in the state of Michigan, but across the nation, so that they won't be allowed to use school facilities, school teachers to do those kinds of programs within the school without jeopardizing that federal education money. So it's not even jeopardizing the hunter safety money, it's the actual education money. And there's no school that's going to, put that kind of money to support their students at risk. And so there's a lot of concerns. We are working with state groups from across the nation, as well as our national partners, in communicating to the U.S. Department of Education that this is absolutely not acceptable, that we cannot let the Biden administration interpret it in this way. And that was not Congress's intent. So we have letters from U.S. congressmen saying that wasn't their intent. And it really just needs to be a change in guidance. So we don't actually have to go change the law. We don't even have to go through rulemaking on this issue. We really just need to convince the Department of Education that their interpretation of the words on the paper is incorrect.
So what do we as hunters and anglers and shooters and trappers here in Michigan do?
Well, I mean, that's one of those things that's interesting because it isn't one where you can, where we need that law change, where we tend to rise up
Gotcha.
and use us to say, vote yes, vote no. It is one of those things. If you do have a connection with your U.S. congressman or U.S. senator, please give them a call. Drop a line and say, this is important to me, and we need to put pressure on the executive branch to make this change. So it's really, the hands, the ball is in the Biden court. They've heard about the concerns out there. And what we are doing too is, and this is where your readers and your listeners can be of great help, is we need to hear personal stories. So if there is a school that is currently teaching hunter education as part of the curriculum, or if there is, an after school program doing hunter safety in the schools, or one of those National Archery in the Schools program teachers, we would love to hear about that because we want to put a face to the problem. Because right now it seems pretty nebulous and there's a lot of letters and a lot of action alerts, but we really want to put a face on this. So we want people to contact MUCC, and they're welcome to contact me directly. And we want to kind of highlight the human side of this and show how it's going to impact our youth and our outdoor heritage, frankly.
Amy, how does somebody contact you, Amy Trotter, directly? What's the best way to do that?
Email is the best, atrotter@mucc.org.
atrotter@mucc.org. My buddy Mark Halston has a question here. I think I know the answer to this. I get asked this a lot. I think you probably do as well, Amy. Anything being done to bring back some amount of bait? Should we as hunters just give up on the possibility of getting bait back in the lower? Mark said he just doesn't want to give up on it.
That is an issue that, at least for this season, is not going to change in the near term. They did open up baiting to the entire Upper Peninsula this year. So they've done the testing for the last 3 years in the one chronic wasting disease case that was in the UP. And they felt that it was safe to reopen the Upper Peninsula to baiting. But as far as the lower goes, we still have at least 19 counties implicated in either tuberculosis, bovine tuberculosis, or chronic wasting disease, where we've had that history of positives within the deer herd. So there is concern about bringing it back. The Natural Resources Commission did discuss it, but it was not something that they put forward to change.
Gotcha. Lisa Seymour, who has done a wonderful job, and I don't mean to cover up your face here, Amy, but she's done a wonderful job keeping the Cornwall flooding at the Pigeon River County State Forest in the public eye. Any thoughts on that, Amy?
That is certainly something that we have heard a lot about. It is an absolute recreational treasure from a fisheries standpoint. We understand. The challenge comes to when these things come to Lansing, there may be a dozen other Cornwalls out there. So it is certainly a conversation of where is the resources best used and how do we get the money for all of the projects across the state. So I do think there is movement in bringing the resources to bear to help to repair and ensure the longevity of this Cornwall flooding. But, our bigger concern, especially as a statewide organization, is where's the money going to come for the other 10 Cornwalls that are out there that we want to make sure to retain. This is one of those cases. It's not always the case where we want to retain the dam. A lot of times the better choice is actually to remove the dam, but this isn't one of those cases.
Gotcha. I'm just posting some comments here. Hey, Uncle Johnny, how you doing, buddy? I find this next question interesting. And in fact, I had Nick Bougie of the Michigan Wildlife Council on the radio show for this weekend. The Michigan Wildlife Council, a group that was authorized by the legislature, Amy, as you know far better than I do. They are there to put hunting and fishing in a positive light, and they've come under attack lately. Kind of an interesting situation.
It really is, and it's unfortunate. This was something that was led by hunters, the creation of which was led by hunters, and it's really modeled off the success in Colorado, where they have the Hug a Hunter, Hug an Angler campaign, and it's really an intent to educate the general public, not the people who are anti-hunting and not the hunters themselves, but the 80% there in the middle that we really want to make sure are okay with hunting, that we want them to understand what hunters and anglers pay for in terms of conservation, and that they really do need to thank hunters and anglers for that investment in fish and wildlife conservation. What has happened, though, is, it's being seen by, groups like HSUS and Attorneys for Animals that it is somehow a special interest campaign. Well, it's not a special interest campaign. It's marketing. And the Apple Committee has the same kind of thing. The Apple Committee has a checkoff for all the apple producers in Michigan to put money in to market apples. And that's what we're doing as hunters and anglers, is marketing ourselves, marketing the good things that we do, and ensuring that we don't come under attack. And so it's no different than any other kind of marketing campaign. We're funding it ourselves. And what the other side has really wanted us to do is change the message and then add all of these non-hunters, non-consumptive users onto the team to be able to craft those messages. And we just don't think that's right.
I'm glad to hear that that's your position. I suspected that would be it. Mark's following up. He said that's disappointing, especially since the DNR has admitted they overreacted to CWD. I can't disagree with you, Mark. I can't argue with you. But as you well know, that's not in Amy's hands, and it's certainly not in my hands. My buddy Johnny Bowler, a coworker, ran across a dozen people putting up trail cameras across the UP, said they're see how many wolves. Just a wolf question, Amy. Anything new on that front, or are we still on hold?
Well, from the Federal Endangered Species Act, we are still absolutely on hold. The wolves are on the Federal Endangered Species list, even though they are a game species here in our state, and they are not on our state endangered species list. So from the policy perspective, we can't manage them in the state until the feds get them off that list. But we do need to look for different ways about communicating the count. And that has been a big discussion with the Wolf Council that I served on last year. They keep talking about the lowest minimum number in the winter, which of course nobody understands. And it's really a biological, biologists use those kinds of terms. We don't generally use that with the public. So we really have been working with the DNR on trying to get them to use sort of a different metric when they're communicating about how many wolves we have in the state. And then the other thing is we are asking them to look for different methods to count wolves here. They've been doing these flyovers and they've been doing these on the ground kinds of, trail surveys. So we have encouraged them to use trail cameras as a tool, but right now it's an evaluation process. They're trying to study the best placement for cameras, where they're going to capture it, where it's not going to be interfered with, those kinds of things. So it really is a research study. So if they're putting cameras in the wrong place, which is what it looked like the comment was about, I think that they're going to learn from that. It is a 3-year study, actually.
Dave Neske, will we ever see a moose hunt in Michigan? I'm going to answer that one. No. And the thing that's interesting about that is back in Moose Lift 1 and Moose Lift 2, the DNR told us there would be 1,000 moose in the UP by the year 2000, and eventually there would be a moose hunt. We didn't reach the 1,000 number. My opinion is we're never going to have a moose hunt here in Michigan. But Amy, what do you think?
Again, that's one where we actually, moose are a game species. So the Natural Resources Commission could institute a hunt. But you're right, they're not growing at the level that we want really to have a sustainable managed hunt. There has been some interesting conversations, and I look forward to more conversation about even just making it a species within the Pure Michigan hunt to really sweeten that Pure Michigan hunt pot. So I think that's an interesting discussion. So only 3 tags throughout the whole state. How many people would want to buy in for that chance? I mean, elk is good enough, but moose would really, really sweeten the pot. So I think that's something that has to be debated and discussed, but it is a brewing conversation in the UP. And I look forward to seeing how that goes through MUCC's grassroots policy process as well.
Well, Amy, I am convinced that sometime in my life, I am going to win the Pure Michigan hunt. And if you add that moose tag in there, it's going to make it harder for me because more people are going to apply. So let's just hold off on that until I win that. Okay. Hey,
Yeah,
Nick Green,
MUCC
Chief Information Officer, said, make sure you talk to Amy about your Fight for Fish campaign. I know a little bit about that, but tell me more, please.
Yeah, this is a sweepstakes. It's only going on for the rest of this month. So there's still plenty of time to get in, but you do need to get in to win. This is a fundraiser for MUCC. Anyone that donates $35 or more will actually get a membership to MUCC as well, or a renewal of your existing membership. But you're entering in for a chance to win 4 different prizes. So there will be 4 winners. In other words, 1 prize for each. A $500 Jay's Sporting Goods gift card, a walleye jigging trip with Michigan Out of Doors TV, Northern Michigan fly fishing trip, or a Lake Michigan salmon charter. So there are 4 great prizes, and we need more people to enter to win. I'm not allowed to win. So as staff, as board members, we're not allowed to win, and we need more people to enter in and get in for a chance to win those. And you'll see the link here to join as well.
There it is, right there. There's your link to enter the Fight for Fish. What's the thinking behind it, Amy? Is this a raise awareness campaign or a raise funds campaign?
It's both, really. We have had an ongoing campaign, really. It kicked off back in June, and we're trying to show people that we do a lot to fight for fish. So we are working both in the Great Lakes and the inland streams. We're working on Lake Erie algal blooms. We're working on commercial fishing. There is a lot out there that we are standing up for fisheries and for anglers, and we need the support of those anglers to make sure that we're going to be around for the long haul. So we need anglers, we need everybody in Michigan to join us in those battles. And so this really is a chance to join MUCC, to support our organization so that we can continue to fight for fish into the future.
Anything new on commercial fishing or consent decree?
On the commercial fishing, yes, we are actively working on getting a new bill introduced this fall. So for those of you where we last left off, it did pass the House back in 2020, and that was just before COVID. And of course, COVID kind of, disrupted a lot of things in the legislature, but we really knew we had a hard brick wall in the Senate to get through. And it wasn't going to happen. We tried, and we did not get it introduced last session. So we have been deliberately looking at the words on the paper, seeing if anything does need to be tweaked, given where we are today now. And we are looking forward to seeing that bill introduced this fall and getting it moving along. As far as the consent decree, we're kind of in probably the same place as a lot of your listeners have heard us talk about over the summer. We have all entered our objections. MUCC, in conjunction with the Coalition to Protect Michigan's Resources, has entered in our objections to the proposed consent decree. And we've had a chance in court now to share our oral arguments. We've filed papers and papers and papers, all kinds of arguments on our behalf and affidavits. And it's really in the judge's hands right now. So we are awaiting some kind of ruling on that. We would definitely expect something by the end of the year, but could be anytime.
Kind of a follow-up, commercial guiding. How's that going?
Commercial guiding, we actually have had great success already this spring. We had hearings in the Senate. It has already passed the Senate just in June, just before they broke for the summer recess. So we are looking forward to getting a quick hearing in the House this fall and hopefully getting that across the finish line by the end of the year as well.
Chris, I did see your pictures. If those deer are in your backyard, I need to go come and hunt your backyard. Brian, interesting question. Would there be a way to get the commercial nets to be lit at night on their markers? I'm going to say no, but a follow-up, Amy, to that situation on Saginaw Bay where that net in the springtime was full of walleye and there was nothing illegal about it because there are no guidelines for pulling those nets. Anything new on that?
Yeah, it is very disappointing to see dead walleye in a net in the bay and have really our state of Michigan's hands being tied on that. That is why this commercial fishing legislation is so necessary. I think as terms of net marking, we want it improved for sure. That would be part of this statute that we would be proposing. Lights, I'm not sure we specify what kind of technology, exactly how to mark the nets, but there has to be net tending requirements as well. And that's where this situation in the bay came into effect. There is no requirement right now of how often they have to lift those nets and check them for bycatch, non-target species caught in there. So right now, even if they did have a penalty, the penalties are currently are so low. It's really just a slap on the wrist. So we need a wholesale modernization of the statute in order to really deal with issues like that.
John says he hasn't seen the new hunting guide, but is it true that squirrels and rabbits can be hunted year-round with or without a license? This would be interesting. Amy, you know anything about that?
Ooh, no, I have not
I don't either.
That. Yeah. I do know that you can hunt small game on your own home where you are regularly domiciled, I think is the language, without a base license. To my knowledge, you would need a base license anywhere else. But yeah, that would be, I would have to look into that.
Davina has a question. Davina, I'm going to suggest on this one, you get in touch with Amy, send her an email, Amy, to atrotter@mucc.org, atrotter@mucc.org. Okay. If you do that, Davina, reference Wednesday Night Live. Amy will respond to you. I know she will. So you guys can take that conversation offline. Johnny said, didn't mean they were putting cameras in the wrong spot. I just don't think they're spending money wisely. Well, there's a $64,000 question, Johnny.
We are required to spend some money monitoring wolves. That is one of the challenges, whether we like it or not, because they have had this federal impetus for so long. We have to show that we are willing to properly manage the species. So when they come off the list, that can't be used against us. So that's important too. We have to show we have a good management plan, that we do have good data to make decisions on. And that's one of the things. So the Natural Resources Commission is going to be talking a little bit more about in October this year at the Natural Resources Commission meeting up in the Upper Peninsula. They are going to propose creating basically a decision tree, for lack of a better term, but making sure that everybody understands what are the must-dos before we could have a wolf hunt, so that there's a clear path to understanding both from the commission, the DNR, and the public, because there's been a lot of turnover, since we last had this actual wolf hunt in 2013. None of those commissioners are around anymore. It's a new wildlife chief, a new DNR director, all of those things. So we do want to make sure that that is clearly communicated and that's going to be up for discussion in October at the NRC.
2013. It's been 10 years since we had that wolf hunt. That's hard to believe.
It is.
Ashley follows up. She said, no squirrels and rabbit year round. Some changes to nuisance critter regulations, which include those critters. DNR director order from the spring. Okay. Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate that. I don't know what you mean by that one, Kevin. So if we don't take care of them, they'll just go away. Fox, control. Amy, what else is on your mind? I brought up a few topics, but what else do you want to talk about before we let you call it an evening here?
Well, I think, this is really an open conversation. So I will say there has been a lot of conversation about how we fund conservation in the future. I can say, talking to all the different division chiefs, which there's a lot of new faces over there, people that have just gotten into their positions, a lot of people acting. The question is, how are we going to fund conservation into the future? And certainly one of those things is Congress and the Recovering America's Wildlife Act. That would be a huge boon for Michigan. We'd probably get about $26 million more per year of federal funding coming into the state to help us manage non-game species. Because right now, hunters and anglers are managing everything. We're managing all the fish and all the wildlife, whether we hunt them or fish for them or not. So we do need other sources of funding to take care of the entirety of the ecosystems and the habitats out there. And so it's a really open conversation right now. RAWA at the federal level would be huge for Michigan, but there is a conversation of, whether we need to do a license adjustment at this point in time, whether or not we need to bring general fund into the departments and into the divisions to help with some of those priorities. Like, we want to make sure that when a development is going on, that someone from fish and wildlife divisions are checking out that permit to make sure that it's not going to harm fish and wildlife. So we need our biologists to be part of that conversation, but then how do we fund it? That's the question. Should that be on the backs only of hunters and anglers? And that's an open conversation right now of how we fund conservation into the future.
Jerry says, we need Amy on the show more often. Amy, I think you should do this every Wednesday night, and I'll just start taking my Wednesday nights off. MUCC, word on the street is Amy's going to Trappers College this year.
Yes. So this has been a really exciting announcement that I've gotten to share with several people now. The Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, so our nonprofit affiliate advocating on behalf of trappers, and we great partner group, they are actually sponsoring my tuition to go to a week-long intensive Trappers College down in Indiana. It's actually a national program put on by the Fur Takers of America. And I am really excited about it. So my first step in getting ready to go to college was to go to the National Trappers Association convention, which just happened to be in Michigan this year. So I actually was just there 2 weeks ago, meeting a lot of the trainers that are going to be there. My husband's already getting his traps prepped for the fall and winter because he thinks I'm going to be, right in there with him, skinning and scraping and doing all the work too. But all I have to bring is waders. They tell me, because I'm in the beginner class, I understand trapping. I advocated for it every day. I've done Trapper's Ed here in Michigan, so I have a good understanding of the regulations. It's actually the hands-on part that I don't. So I'm really excited to go back to college and learn a little bit more.
Oh, that sounds good. Hey, Johnny, don't worry about bringing up wolves, man. You feel free to bring up wolves anytime you want, because the thing about you, Johnny, and I know you very well, right? You spend enough time out there in the middle of the UP, out there in the woods with the bears and the wolves, and you know what you see, Johnny. So I understand why you feel very strongly the way you do. Johnny, I'll put your comment back up here again. Don't back off, buddy. Keep posting and keep telling people what you think. That's what we need to hear. We need to hear from people like you, Johnny, who are out there every day. And Amy, I think that's what you always tell me about MUCC. You want to hear from people. You want to hear from your members and even people who aren't members. You want to know what's going on.
Absolutely. And on the issue of wolves, we're all frustrated. So I've been working on this for, 16 years of my career at MUCC too. And we've gone through the listing and delisting process 5 times under every president since I have been on staff. So it's getting old. And what really needs to happen, I mean, truly would be the game changer is changes to the Federal Endangered Species Act. Unfortunately, that's not something, as a state-based organization that we can truly take on. And that's why we partner with a lot of our national groups to have those conversations with Congress and with our senators. We really need to reform that and make the delisting process as easy as the listing process, because that's been the problem, is that we just can't get them off a list once they're on.
Amy, Matt Shock wants to know, will you be in Everett for the Trappers and Predator Caller Convention there?
Unfortunately, I won't. I'm sorry. It's my kiddo's birthday, but I have been before, and I would totally recommend it for everyone. That was my very first really experience in the scene and understanding more of the trapping world. And I showed up in khakis, and they totally thought I was a mole. So I would recommend that you don't wear khakis and a polo to the Trappers Convention, because they kind of wonder who you are and what you're up to.
Amy, last question for you, and I'll let you go. And I think it's a good way to ease out of this. John says, what's the best way for those of us who like hunting and fishing to help protect the sport? I'm going to say, and I'm going to say, Amy, I think by joining groups like MUCC and making your thoughts known. What do you think?
Absolutely. Apathy is going to get us nowhere. You have to engage. So whether you engage with MUCC, which of course would be my preference to join and also support, we need the funding, all the funding we can get to be able to fight these battles. But even just engaging with your legislator, getting to know them, getting to them to understand what your priorities are as a hunter, angler, trapper is really important. So apathy will get us nowhere. You have to engage somehow. And if you're not going to call your legislator or your congressman, then you really need to join groups like MUCC who can work to speak on your behalf.
One more plug for Fight for Fish.
Absolutely. Our rally up is ready to take your order. If you enter in, for every entry, every dollar that you give, you get more entries. So we're encouraging you to certainly donate often, donate as much as you can afford. It is supporting MUCC by membership and donation dollars, and you will get entered into 4 great prizes. So again, the Jay's Sporting gift card, a walleye trip, a fly fishing trip, and a Lake Michigan salmon charter. So we have great prizes, and we really need you to engage in this and make it a go. We need to make sure that we are around for the future to be able to fight for fish.
Amy, always a pleasure. We'll look forward to talking with you here on Wednesday Night Live again in a couple of months. Let's get you on the radio show soon. And again, your email, atrotter@mucc.org, atrotter@mucc.org.
That is correct.
All right, Amy, have a good night. Always a pleasure, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, that's Amy Trotter, Executive Director of MUCC, and just a really nice lady. Really, I have nothing but respect for her. And some people think that MUCC has some power or authority that they don't have. MUCC is not the DNR. MUCC has some input. Well, they have a lot of input. They have some sway with the DNR, but they can't make things happen. They can't make Michigan have a DNR, MUCC legislature. MUCC cannot unilaterally decide to have a wolf hunt. They cannot unilaterally decide to have a moose hunt. They can't unilaterally decide to get rid of native nets in the Great Lakes. So, they can only do so much, but I think they do a great job. Okay. MUCC.org is the website, MUCC.org. Let me walk through a couple of other things before we call it a night tonight. Have you noticed, as I look out the window right now and it's starting to get dark so much earlier, do you feel like summertime is starting to slip away? The cooler nights, the shorter days, it's kind of exciting if you're a deer hunter, right? Seeing a lot of bucks right now in velvet. They always look so much bigger in velvet. Chris says, I wish there was a group to work for hunters here. Okay. Chris is in Kansas. I was going to say, well, yeah, they've got the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, but that doesn't help you in Kansas. Joe says, sure does. Steve says, can't wait for deer season. Bernie says, it feels like we're a month ahead. Bear says, it's bear season. The heck with worrying about deer right now. It's bear season. More pictures of the bears taking off fast. Johnny, I sure wish I was hunting with you this fall. Dave says the cicadas are starting already. They've been buzzing for weeks now. John says the Ohio hunt is only 68 days away. 68 days away. Randy, how skinny is skinny? And you know what I mean. I've seen some maples turning red already. I wondered if it was from the drought earlier, though, or not. Food plots, good time to be putting in your food plots. We have had some rain across the state, so it's a good time to be thinking about that. People have been asking me for perch reports on Saginaw Bay. I'm not the right guy to ask for perch reports. I'm not the right guy. Even when the perch are biting and the perch are in, I'm just not a perch guy. I either can't find them, or if I find them, I can't catch them. I'm just not a perch guy. John says up in the Sioux, a very tiny bit of trees were changing. I did see the email from Ohio Bow Hunting Outfitters today. I forwarded it to my grandson, Trent, who is going to be with us, but he's not on the list. How are the walleye? I was still getting walleye last Friday up in Skinny Water. Gene, I have not fished since then. I appreciate that, Chris. I really do. The biggest buck I ever shot was in Kansas, 150-inch 10-point. Ron's got a new crossbow to get sighted in. Can't wait. Well, don't wait. Get out there and sight it in. Interesting, Jeff. We lose 70 minutes of daylight from what through the month of August? Scott says, don't tell anybody about the perch. I can't because I don't know anything about it. Okay, let me tell you who's on the Outdoor Magazine radio show this week, because this will lead to another conversation. Andrew St. Peter is my opening guest. Let me address this. Jerry says, question, Mike, deer hunting is not your top priority anymore. I don't know if it ever was, Jerry. Maybe at one time it was. What's your favorite outdoors pastime now? Walleye fishing and bear hunting. Easy enough. Walleye fishing and bear hunting. My lights are flickering here. I don't know if it's just at the house or something else. Co-worker was warned about wolves while camping in Paradise coming into the campground. People are told to keep their dogs close. So there's proof of the wolf pop. Nobody, Elmer, nobody's doubting the wolf population. Nobody is doubting the wolf population. Wonder if I got a switch going bad over there in the wall or what, because they're all flickering now. It just started. That's weird. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate Amy being on. Always a pleasure. Turkey hunting too. Yeah, turkey hunting is a big passion of mine. Yeah. Deer is like number 4. It's behind bear hunting, walleye fishing, and turkey hunting. And then there's deer hunting. Deer hunting is not what it used to be. And I just can't relate to it anymore. Anyway, they're up now. Andrew St. Peter, who is the marketing director for AnglerQuest Pontoons. AnglerQuest has announced a change in direction, and they have actually changed the models offered for 2024, meaning the Pro Troll, their flagship ship, is not going to be offered anymore. I have a Pro Troll, and you always know an AnglerQuest Pro Troll because it's got that big, beautiful, I call it rocket launcher radar arch up on top. They're not going to offer that anymore. They're offering a Pro Fish, a Family Fish, and an entry-level unit. I didn't know what to think of this at first because I thought, oh no, they're abandoning their fishing market, which got them to prominence in the first place, until I saw the Family Fish. That Family Fish is a beautiful boat. If I was able to and could run a Family Fish next year, because there will be no more Pro Trolls, I could run that Family Fish and be very, very happy. Good evening, Ron. How are you? Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. He's at the bait shack right now. He will have hunters coming up there in the next few days. Ron, have a great season. I will look forward to the pictures. NorthernWildernessBearOutfitters.com is the website. NorthernWildernessBearOutfitters.com. Arlen, I'm doing well. How are you this evening? Then also on this week's radio show, Nick Bougie of the Michigan Wildlife Council, following up on what I talked about with Amy, on the fact that that council has come under attack because they don't have an anti-hunter and they don't have somebody from the tribes on the Michigan Wildlife Council. I'm so sick of this crap. Honestly, I'm so sick of people whining. I'm just sick of it. Then in our second hour, I was going to have Paul Schlafly of Riverside Charters in Manistee talking about fishing for kings in the big water, because I figured he'd be in close and I figured he'd be in good cell range. Turns out he was way offshore, couldn't get a cell signal. So at the last minute, Bill Hahn of Jay's Sporting Goods jumped in and he bailed me out. Sean, who has a Family Fish Pro, now calling the Pro Family Fish, says it's the best of both worlds. I was very impressed with that boat, Sean. Very impressed. I'll get to that in just a second here, Ed. Then Joe Pressgrove from the DNR talks about the Hunt Fish app, how you can use it, how you get it. This week's Ask Avery question deals with the Master Angler program. Now, it used to be that in Michigan, there were two categories for the Master Angler program. There was a catch and keep, and there was a catch and release. The catch and keep category was more restrictive. They've done away with that. There is only one category for Michigan Master Angler now. Catch and keep, catch and release, they don't care. The way you enter these days is you take a picture of the fish next to a ruler so they can verify how big it is and they can verify the species. I also think it's a good idea to take a picture of you holding the fish. This came up because a couple of weeks ago, we caught a Master Angler white bass on the Angler Quest, a 16-incher. So I talk about that process and how you enter. Oh, now you're talking, Chris. Interesting comment. Johnny talks about pups activity spiking. Last week, I talked with a guy who lost a bear dog to a wolf attack. There had been another one since then. So that's good advice. Good advice. And then Ed Bolanowski in the third hour of this week's show. And I got to be honest, there are very few people I talk to who actually make me nervous. This guy made me nervous, not because he's a hard nose or hard to talk with, but he's huge. He's the GOAT. He's KVD. He's Kevin Van Dam, the most successful professional angler in freshwater ever. He's won more money, more tournaments. He's wrapping up a 33-year career as a professional bass angler. He wrapped up last weekend on Saginaw Bay, darn near won the thing, but didn't quite pull it off. So I talked with him about that tournament, about his career, about fishing, and about being successful in life. I think it's a pretty good conversation. And you know what? There is no wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Miner on the show this week. He's okay. Terry's okay. But something came up at the last minute that he could not join me. Next week, 1 week from tonight, right now, we will just be wrapping up another Wednesday Night Live, this time at the Michigan Brand plant in Bay City. Now, this is not open to the public, but I'm going to take you behind the scenes at Michigan Brand. Patrick says, it's a shame AnglerQuest is not going to be making their flagship Pro Trail. They already stopped making the smaller fishing pontoons. Not so, Patrick. They still make a 16-foot fishing pontoon. That said, the family fish looks awesome. It does. Arlen says, off topic, having a hard time choosing between fixed blade or the G5 Mega. I don't think you can go wrong on either one. I don't think you can go wrong with a G5 or a Rec broadhead. Both Michigan-made, top-quality broadheads. So 1 week from tonight, we will be back for Wednesday Night Live, and this time we will be live from the Michigan Brand plant in Bay City. Oh, listen to that. That's not the music I wanted, but it'll work. All right, my name is Mike Avery. This is Wednesday Night Live. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Appreciate you joining me this time around. enjoy this little musical interlude, even though it's the wrong musical interlude. Have a good night, my friends. Talk to you next time right here on Wednesday Night Live.